We've talked about it in our New Mexico in Focus meetings and maybe in your own homes too. This week has been rough. It just feels like this is the week where it all sort of has come home to roost for a lot of us. We're also seeing it in our government as Republicans have called for a far more detailed public health order from Governor Lujan Grisham. And Democrats have bristled, honestly, saying easing restrictions all but guarantees a healthcare crisis in our state and an overwhelmed health system. That's where we'll start with our panel this week. Today we have two with us. Really pleased to have line regular and UNM law professor Serge Martinez. Serge, hello there. And Julianne Grimm, editor and publisher of the Santa Fe Reporter, also joins us this week. Julianne, thank you from Santa Fe. Really appreciate you coming in, meaning your living room, but we appreciate that. All right,
thank you.
Let me start with what's the most recent situation we had here, which was Easter weekend. I'm curious, Julianne, starting with you, if there was a timing problem here as part of the issue with Governor Lujan Grisham, meaning some churches did hold service that did in fact violate the no gathering order. And one of the priests was quoted here in Albuquerque saying, look, the order just came down flat out way too late for me to do anything about. Is he partially correct on that?
The order did come very late. I mean, I think that, prior to that coming really at the end of the week, we were all under the impression that it was a good idea to not have a gathering that large, but that the state wasn't going to command the churches to not hold that type of gathering. So I think you saw a lot of churches make proactive decisions early on in this process. Again, the early part of March, kind of transfer everything to this virtual, Facebook Live kind of worship experience for folks. There's just been a lot of efforts to stay connected, but not to have those large group meetings. So I think there was plenty of opportunity for people to prepare for that. And, it's really a measure of stubbornness. It's just a measure of disbelief that some folks said, it's fine, we'll have these big groups get together anyway. And I think we've seen across the country, across the world, where big gatherings like that were found to be kind of, hubs of the disease transmission. And so, faith communities are not immune to that. They're not protected from the virus transmission. And so I think you had a lot of people paying attention to that early on.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. Serge, your take on this, we've got some other things to cover here, but your take, my sense of it was the governor was just basically waiting for the church to take its own leadership position on this and not have her have to step in. She waited as long as possible, then finally stepped in with it, but I'm not sure if it really served the situation. What was your sense of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously the optics of it are not great, saying, you have to not do church. And I can see from a political standpoint, some reluctance to actually make that pronouncement. I also think this just, lays very clear this disconnect between those who are looking for reasons and ways to sort of opt out of the governor's orders, right? To say, oh, this doesn't apply to us, and those who are looking for ways to opt in and say, oh, this does apply to us. And like Julianne was saying, it's probably not a good idea for us to be doing this, even if the restrictions don't explicitly say you may not do X, Y, or Z. And so, the question of how detailed do you need to get is one that I face regularly with students, with my children, in society. Any sort of law or policy making, we discuss that. In this case, I think the good citizen and civic and member of society answer is, let's try to be as good at self-regulating as possible. Mm-hmm. And it's always unfortunate when folks push that too far.
Let me stay with you, Serge, on this next one. State GOP Chairman Stephen Pierce had a big Zoom meeting for Republicans recently, airing a lot of frustration over the governor's order, calling it a one-size-fits-all scenario that's not working for lots of rural parts of New Mexico, meaning if the idea is to gang people up just into big box stores in order to keep exposure down and keep exposure to all of us at a minimum, picking winners and losers here is having a bit of a problem for a lot of Republicans. What's your sense of it? Because a lot of folks are saying, all right, we get the 6-foot thing, we get the face mask thing. Why can't local nurseries, local package stores, any kind of store follow the same kind of rules as big box stores?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, again, it's a similar sort of question, right? What we're saying is not who gets to, be the winner, as you say, but who do we need to have open? Who do we need to be able to, for folks to be able to access as a public? This is not about individual businesses and business owners or individual types of business. And I mean, it's obviously regrettable for everyone involved where we are, but it's missing the forest for the trees here to say, well, we can do all those, we can, be just as safe as they can, possibly, but that's not the point. The point is to minimize contact as much as possible. And any sort of efforts to stretch that and push that are just going to increase the amount of exposure and spread. And it is, to me, almost, it's missing the big picture, right? To focus on these sort of small individual decisions and impacts.
But Julianne, or following up on what Serge is saying here, is it not huge when let me give you an example. There was a woman that owned a restaurant, package store, sort of one of those classic combination stores you see in rural New Mexico a lot. She's in the Raton area, and she is miles. I mean, folks that sort of ring around her have miles to go to get what she has to offer for those local communities. And her question was, who is this actually serving? I can find a way to put tape in my floor. I can ask for people to put on masks. I can find a way for us to be safe so folks don't have to drive 20 miles for a roll of toilet paper. Do these folks have a point here that there's a way to do this?
I think they do have a point. I think we've seen, that what the governor said in the press conference yesterday, I thought was interesting when a reporter asked her to follow up on the nursery issue. She kind of said, and I'll paraphrase, we can't be looking for loopholes here. And she talks about how painful it is, but I think at the same time, there are common sense ways to deal with it, and ways to deal with it that don't reward out of state big box stores that don't pay into the New Mexico economy and have crappy wages and awful benefits. We're sending everyone there instead of being able to send folks to the local businesses that we've fought so hard to establish and support. And so I think when it comes to this nursery issue, is a great example. Santa Fe Reporter broke this story that nurseries were getting cease and desist orders last week. And in fact, there still isn't clarity about what to do. The governor has essentially said, we're not creating a loophole for you. We're sorry, deal with it. But you've got some nurseries offering curbside service and, kind of that model that a lot of retail has migrated to. And then you have some nurseries that are like, look, we got a cease and desist order. We've closed completely and all of our plants are going to die before you get this resolved. And I think, another kind of situation that's similar is that the week before, we learned that bicycle shops were being asked to close, even though they were providing essential transportation repair services for people who depend on, anything but a car to get around. And in that instance, you had the mayor of the city of Santa Fe, Alan Weber, sent a late night email to the governor's office. And the very next morning, it was like, okay, fine. Bike shops can stay open if they follow these new strict rules and only for repair. So you see some movement, you see some compromise in some areas, but not in others. And I think it's not just the Republicans who are complaining about this. It's really across the board, because you are looking at, as a business owner, what do the next 2 weeks look like? We're closed until May 1st right now. Are we going to be closed until May 15th?
Right.
No one knows. You did, have the governor's general counsel tell the Supreme Court in the election arguments on Tuesday that things weren't going to be back to normal by the time early voting started in the middle of May. So I felt like that was a pretty good indication also that we're not going to be, back to party time on May 1st.
Right. I got to imagine. We're at 2 minutes, guys. Serge, I wanted you to follow up on that as well. The idea that I'm hearing your point a second ago, but is it not a problem to have so many people ganged up into big box stores? I can't even imagine myself personally walking into a big box store right now. It just seems very dangerous. But here we are forcing people to do this. There's something almost illogical here when you think about it, and it makes it a tough sell to the public and some parts of the public. Is there wiggle room for this governor at some point in the next couple of weeks to start to ease some of these things in your mind?
I mean, I absolutely think there's always room for a smarter well-crafted policy and approach that would take some of this into account. Where I'm concerned is, as Julianne said, the mayor of Santa Fe sends an email to the governor and gets stuff done. All the businesses that don't have the ear of the mayor of Santa Fe or someone that can talk to the governor, this is how we create bad policy, by crafting a bunch of small exceptions that are based on who you know, or one person who got, managed to get the news coming to talk to them or whatever, instead of a thoughtful, well-crafted response. So I think there's absolutely room, and it's totally consistent with what I've been sort of saying, right? What we need is not a bunch of ad hoc exceptions to this. It's important to understand the overall general principles that we're going for, and be smart and thoughtful and agree on what are the base principles we're worrying about, rather than try to say, these are winners, these are losers, but rather this is consistent with the overall goal.
Gotcha. We'll have to leave that there, guys. We'll come back to look at COVID-19 in prisons in just a second.